Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Water Cooler Chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's delegating, orchestrating, broadcasting, transcoding, or developing. We're here to ask questions and get answers. So today we got a couple topics ahead of us: AI integration, the DAO, a couple other things around video transcribing, price per pixel. But I'd like to start off with, the topic around AI integration. So this was a topic that was brought up the end of last year, so a whole year ago. Not actually though, only 2 weeks ago, where Doug, one of the co-founders of Livepeer, talked about how there's now going to be this new initiative for promoting or pushing some sort of like fork or spike, as he calls it, around adding AI work flows, work jobs to the Livepeer, Go Livepeer binaries. So, this could include things like upscaling or generative AI or things along this nature. So I'd like to kick us off a little bit with that topic because we haven't had a water cooler in over 2 weeks, and a lot has happened since then. So does anyone have any comments or opinions on kind of the integration, on how they're going to be going forward with how they plan to spike it? Like, it's not going to be included directly in with the Go Livepeer workflow. It's going to be like a separate kind of branch. Does anyone have any opinions on that, or want to share their thoughts on this new initiative?
I mean, I can say I'm excited to see where this goes, and I think there's a lot of potential with it. Still a little early on from what I've seen as far as where the development stands on it, but it does seem to be moving quickly. But it's not a lot actually out there right now for, me personally to comment on. I saw Rick posted a bunch of stuff in the forums about it, and seems to have a pretty good grasp on the stuff Janen's been working on. So I'd be curious to hear Rick's thoughts on it, if you don't mind sharing.
Nope.
No, you
Oh, there you
no,
go.
you can hear me.
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear you.
I'm trying to get really involved in it because it's in my field of expertise. It's quite a little bit different. I'm into reinforcement learning, so this is more supervised learning, but I think it's a really valid use case, and that's why I was involved in the technical forum and also try to ask questions to Doc and the team about how they implement it. And I think they take a good approach. They could move quickly, but they first try to get it out with Quan, I think, with the other team, with SPA, to get like this D app while the team works on the backside, so integrating in Livepeer, Livepeer Go and stuff like this. And if I understood it correctly, later they will look if they can integrate it in Livepeer Studio.
Yeah, it's
And
really. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, do you think that it will be easy to integrate into the current Go code that exists for Livepeer, or will it be kind of running as its own separate thing?
I didn't look into that deeply enough. I looked at the technical update of Yondon. I think what he's planning with using a containerized version, that's doable to implement it. I think he has a really good vision on that. The thing which is going to be more complicated is the job types and how they're going to manage that. I did not look into that myself. I think Titan will have a better overview of that because I still need to dive myself into like the whole code base on that part.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of my I don't know if concern is the right word, but one of my areas of curiosity is how will the different types of job types be accounted for, and just going forward, because it's so different than video transcoding. And even currently with Livepeer's method of accounting for work that's done seems to be a little bit lacking, in my opinion, about how that gets accounted for. So I'd like to just kind of make sure that moving forward that Livepeer really puts thought into having some protocol level thought into how accounting for different types of job types gets I guess accounted for.
I actually think the idea of outputted pixels that we charge is actually works better for generative stuff because we are generating new stuff rather than only generating stuff based on inputs of other video. I think it actually works more accurately.
You're saying so to actually use pixels, like the outputted pixels that get that come out of the job.
Yeah. Like for an example, one of the examples that Yonan posted was to upscale video. So you're going from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second, right? And the idea, I think that was one of his examples. And the idea is, hey, you can make a much more nicer looking video based on frame rates. And so charging per pixel of output is actually great when it comes to how we charge on the Livepeer network because we're generating pixels out of thin air, right? And so it actually, we don't need input, this is one of the yeah. Anyway, kind of beating a dead horse. You probably get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess it probably also depends on job types. Just I just want to make sure that the amount of compute that's being used is being rewarded. Just working just some really basic stuff that I've been doing with Stability AI over here. Just running my own just workflows and seeing like how much compute power different jobs take. And I mean, I suppose if you can get the same result in a shorter period of time, then you can output more pixels per per minute or hour, however you want to quantify that. Maybe enough, but uh, I don't. I guess then maybe does speed come into it at all? For user experience, if you send a job to someone and they're going to process it on a 1080 versus a 4090, is there should the speed that something is returned in be rewarded for a better user experience? Or is that something that maybe is just factored into the to the cost to the user? Like if you're not it's not a high priority thing to get it back right away, maybe you charge less for it if it comes back within a certain period of time. And I'm just just kind of spitballing here, just different ideas and thoughts of what um, what would be the best way to go about it, or I don't know the best way, but just different thoughts on how to you know quantify how much compute you're using for these tasks. But possibly if it's just you can do more work during because your card's more powerful, then that may be enough.
I think you have very valid points there, Papa Bear, because I agree with Titan that it's quite easy to integrate. I think it's quite easy to integrate these kind of job with already existing infrastructure because you can charge pixel per output. But then, like you say, it also every model is different, and some differences are way harder to compute. So you will use more resources, more energy, and there should be some component that also rewards those. Otherwise, you can have two models that will have the same output, but they are way different in how many power and compute they use and how many flops, and they will give the same payment. That I think there will be that will be not beneficiary. So it's a good point to bring up to the team.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just rough. Like when I first saw this AI talk going on, I just threw a couple different workflows onto a 3070 I have here and an A4000 I have here, and they took close to 3 minutes to do a job, and then I decided to treat myself to a 4090, did the same job, and I got it back in like 30 seconds for the same job. So um, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Other than 49 is obviously a lot faster.
Dude, that
Um,
4090,
but
that's amazing.
uh, yeah, well, the having the extra RAM was certainly a big part of it, but the GPU does run at 100% during that. So it's a combination of not having enough RAM on the 8 gigs is not enough RAM from what I'm seeing for most of these type of jobs, and that's based on the workload that I was using. So not knowing what the actual job types will be, that may be more or less of an issue, depending on, again, what type of resolutions, and I mean, a lot of different factors, uh, but yeah, I'm sorry, I've just totally lost my train of thought on that. Um,
I think
sorry, I was just gonna let that go.
I think the the whole so your original kind of question or comment was around, how should we reward people for getting it back faster? And I think this problem has already kind of been solved with the whole, well, not really. I'll take that back. But with the whole VOD thing, where it's like, well, based on your job type, the price per pixel will change based on what is important to the broadcaster. Now we can't actually differentiate job types on our end, so that's already just a problem. But from the broadcaster, they can say, you know what, VOD, I don't care how long it takes, and so therefore I want a cheaper price because you could just take your sweet time, and then I'll get it back eventually, and as long as it's not too ridiculous, I'm quite happy. Whereas live, you're gonna you pay a premium for the returning in real time, and so for the generative AI stuff, you could say, well, if we're just generating say video content that it acts as VOD, well, okay, we don't care how long that takes. It'll be like a mid journey where you just input it. It takes some arbitrary amount of time, and you get it back. Whereas something like upscaling live video, where you go from 30 frames per second to 60, and it has to be live, you could say, well, okay, that is it just has different priorities, and so therefore it's going to have a different price. It'll So I think that would be how we handle the different job types, and how we the market reacts to the demand side of how quickly something needs to be returned. So it's just my 2 cents.
I think your 2 cents is quite clear on that. I think this is an important point for the team. I think your distinction between this longer taking test and the short taking test can be a great starting point. I only am afraid if I, as a builder, for example, I will want to build a D app. If I have my customers wait for longer than 10 seconds or something, they will lose interest, for example, for some models, if they just want to generate things. So there has to be, I think, another distinction within yeah, the generative AI, what you compare with VOD.
Yeah.
But I
That
think it's a
already
good starting point.
exists with VOD in the pipeline. I think if you what is the current rate for? Do we know what Livepeer Studio's current limit is for VOD? I think it's 75% of the length of the video. So if you do a 10-minute video and it's not returned within 12 or 13 minutes, it's just kicks you out. So
Oh, that's nice that they have that already.
yeah. So you don't
Because,
just
like
get
I said, I still need to look into all those details. I'm just starting out. But
yeah. Basically, the way it works is for live video, it's okay. So they've done for live video, it's basically you have to be within real time. So you have to have 1 second needs to come back in 1 second, essentially. I think they might have even updated that to be 1.1 seconds just to give you a buffer on which doesn't make sense to me unless they're dual transcoding like they were before on their internal servers. But for VOD, they just have the same setting. It's just extended out a bit further so that you get a chunky 4K stream or 4K video that's VOD. It's like, okay, well, you don't need to return that back in real time. You can be slower than real time. We'll allow that, but there's a degree of there's a cutoff point. So that does exist already in the VOD pipeline. So that can be probably ported over pretty easy to generative stuff, right?
That's very good. I think for a starter point, they already have a nice setup. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think the nuts and I think the baseline is there. We charge based on output, and there's different pipelines and with different criteria on what matters to the broadcaster. Unfortunately, we just have on the orchestrator side. We're the side that actually gets the crappy end of the stick because we can't differentiate currently the job types that are coming in. So we don't know what's VOD, we don't know what's live, and we don't know. We can't charge different price per pixels based on those. So our side is actually very limited, but the broadcaster side, I believe you get a lot more ability to determine to modify what you want to have happen and what your requirements are.
Do you think that's something it's really valuable to implement, that we have more information? Just asking as an open source contributor, sorry.
No, I think it's absolutely possible. I just think the supply side is so great that it's not actually an issue, and it takes work, and no one wants to actually do the work. I think Brad or John would probably know more about this.
I will ask them. Great, thanks.
I missed a lot of that. I've been cutting it.
Yeah,
Back in, I heard Titan say my name. All right.
Hey guys.
Yeah, John, you want to take a whack at it?
Yeah, if you could go over that again. I was distracted too.
No, it's just what would it take for us as orchestrators to separate the work so we know what's VOD, what's live, and adjust price per pixel accordingly to the all that workflow stuff on the orchestrator side.
There's a connection between orchestrator and from the broadcaster to the orchestrator that tells what type of for example, what type of resolution that job is for. For example, I think what we need to do is define something else within that communication, that contract of data that says this is for an AI workload or practically anything. Once we have that extra value, we ran into this with the VOD work too, where VOD was just put in as a different resolution. And we really can't differentiate the difference between live video and VOD on the orchestrator side, which limited our ability to set pricing, separately for those. So I think that would be low hanging fruit. Like that's a quick win if we can get some differentiator. And whenever a session is started or work is sent through a session from broadcaster to orchestrator, that just says, you could implement it with the existing VOD versus live video just as a proof of concept, and then build on that for AI work. Beyond that, I think maybe there's a use case for having a separate. Maybe it's not a transcoder. Maybe it's a different type of application that runs separately from the orchestrator that does the AI work. But yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that'd be really nice for the broadcaster to send just in that metadata, like what job this actually is. And then from the orchestrator side, we collect that and then, manage our work based on how we want, right? We can send, lower, VOD work to any server location because we're not too worried about speed. We can send live work to our much faster transcoders and then AI work to our dormant, cloud of whatever. Like, yeah, it's just it would definitely give us some more opportunity. Is it low hanging fruit though? You think? Like, how difficult do you think it would be to implement? I know Rick was kind of asking maybe if he could jump into the code base and test some stuff out.
I don't. It depends on how you implement it. I think. Sorry, John.
Go ahead.
If you add a field to the RPC call and the RPC like framework, it could be a string, so it could be anything. But if you go the route, there's also a route like if you use the existing capabilities framework that's in there to add something to it, like VOD or live or like Jan had said, generate video for the AI stuff. You could do it either way. Both are probably not terribly difficult. But the capabilities one, right, pretty rigid, where it has to follow new releases from Go Livepeer or new code commits for people to download to be able to be like interact with it. There's no like loading the capabilities from a JSON file or flat file or whatever, if that makes sense. So I think it's relatively easy. Adding the capabilities is just adding to like an enum, adding to a list that it takes over from there. Adding to the RPC call is just adding a field. But I'm not sure how breaking that is on the RPC call.
Cool, thanks guys. I will keep it in mind. I still have about 4 or 5 weeks to do for my thesis, but after that I'm planning to look at some of these things.
Yeah, Rick, I would highly recommend reaching out to John and Brad if you have technical questions or code-based questions. They are quite familiar and are super duper people in a community to rally around and join their little. If you got pick their brain if you can. I do all the time. I probably annoy them, so it's great.
Well, I already experienced it. Brett helped me a lot already, so thank you, Brett, and John as well in the chat. So.
Yeah. Rick's got quite a Christmas list to work on.
Hey, so, yeah, don't we all? All right, cool. Well, yeah, so just to wrap up, the AI integration thing, I haven't looked into this. I did want to bring up also this other topic around this SPE. So the special purpose entity that, how do you say his name? Huang Kang? Huang Kang? I think that's how you say it. Kang, no, his first name's Kang. No, Kang Huang. That's it. Kang Huang. He created the. He's been involved with Livepeer, it looks like, for a bit, but he's proposing a special purpose entity that would be similar to the Livepeer Innovators DAO, that would pull funds from the treasury and build AI-based video compute jobs, like things around this nature, into the Livepeer network. And he created this whole post about it and some milestones and teams and roles and stuff like this. So, which is very, very cool. I'm happy to see that there could even be a DAO based on this AI expansion. Does anyone else have any comments on that or want to make some predictions?
Nothing specific for me, but I'm interested in how it integrates and how it runs. I think it'll be different for each builder that makes something, you know? Right now we have basically one way of communicating with the RPC and an API, like a REST API kind of. It'll be interesting how it all integrates. A lot of this stuff is in Python, or a lot of build outs already in Python. And I'm generally against like building tools from the ground up when there's already things available, when you just got to make them communicate together, you know? So it'll be an interesting little experiment.
When you say it's in Python, are you talking about the actual AI work?
Yeah.
So,
Like there's a lot of build out there already done. Like I understand C or C++ or even Go might be faster, Also takes a lot longer to get off the ground, I would imagine, with less community behind it. So, like, in my eyes, I always saw this as being some kind of like Go Livepeer, or maybe the router or something that talks Livepeer network is in between and can just, orchestrate, send the stuff around. Does it have to be the same Go Livepeer binary and integrate all the way with, live video or transcoding? Yes, in some scenarios, but also no, it could be a whole different job type. Somebody might just want to make 1,000 images really quick and see what they all look like.
Yeah, and that can, if you have a router or some sort of your orchestrator, it doesn't need to be built in Go. It can just be, like the router that Brad built. You could say, well, what job type is this? It's live. It's a video transcoding. Great. You can head down the regular Go Livepeer path that we've been building out for the last 7 years or whatever. But the router says, hey, this is an AI job. You fire that off to a Python built script around handling AI workloads, and then you can. And what you're saying, Brad, is there's already a lot of pre-built libraries and things around in Python, so it would be much easier to integrate, to build out that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it also touches on like what Mike has been saying: go to where the people are, instead of trying to forge a brand new path. Well, I think a brand new path or a unique path will emerge, and the Livepeer network or core team will figure out one way, niche, or one avenue to go down. I think initially it's just like see what sticks,
Yeah, I like the idea of using like an RPC interface or something with other third-party AI tools, and just adding those to the Livepeer network.
And I've been experimenting with something like, my thought is an external capabilities kind of thing that's similar in thought of the capabilities that the Go Livepeer has now, but it's like it's an API endpoint on the Go Livepeer node that external nodes that you control, right? That'd be the orchestrator type thing. Another orchestrator kind of node would register with Go Livepeer, like HTTP API, and then you would use Go Livepeer to process the payments. It's already built out. Is the sender have reserve? How much reserve? Generating the tickets, processing the tickets, caching the tickets, all that. It's already built out, and Go Livepeer just needs some endpoints to talk. And a secure way to do it, but that can be on the same machine or through SSL. So I'm not so worried about that part. So I'm experimenting on how, like, a proof of concept and how to get it up and running. And I'm somewhere in the deep part of the ocean of that now, trying to figure everything out.
So how much experimenting have you done with the AI work, these tools that have been posted? I haven't been following it lately. Over New Year's and Christmas, I took a break. So what have you been experimenting with, and what do you see as promising so far?
I haven't experimented with the tools so much as I'm trying to work through a proof of concept of how they can all communicate, how everything can communicate together. How do you know where to send it? What are the capabilities? The capabilities could change. How do you know what models are loaded? All those technical kind of discovery details, and how Go Livepeer might integrate with that or not, or if it would be better with something different like the router, or a different router implementation, more, a different or lighter implementation of the router that just tries to capture certain things. So less so on the models. I mean, I've generated images and stuff, and I haven't done the video yet, but looked around. I tried to use Comfy UI, but I got really confused, so I stopped on that. The other one I talked to the developer on Cushy Studio for a little bit, because it's like a different front end for Comfy UI, and it has like a built-in ability to route traffic to remote servers or remote nodes that would be able to process that run the Comfy UI server part. So he seemed open to trying to help integrate or make it possible, but we need the groundwork on our side to make that possible. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah, I have a
also,
question about that.
Mhm.
Oh,
You
sorry.
go first.
I was gonna say, when you originally posted that, Brad, if I remember correctly, did it also allow parallelization of the
Yeah.
of the jobs?
Yeah, I think it
Because
did.
that's something that Comfy does not have, or anything that I've seen from Stability AI, which would obviously be a really nice add, because I've tried to run it in the machines that have multiple GPUs, and I was like, you could select which GPU you want it to go to, but you can't split the job. So I think that would be huge if that's something that he's worked out. I don't know if you've looked into how well that works, or if that is actually how
I
he does
haven't
it,
looked
but
at that yet. When I was talking to him, I was realizing that we don't have any way of connecting to that yet. That would also provide a payments type interface, and that like how to do the payments. And then I can keep going off the deep end here. Then I got into lowering the reserve allocation. How do I do that, or how can that be possible? Which I think I figured that out, but I haven't tested it much yet. So, because if you think of somebody wanting to generate something, they're not going to want to put $100 up, most likely, in a deposit. I put $20 up or something like that, to get the work going.
yeah, no, I think that's a big issue, is making it some way that's user accessible, that doesn't require like upfront, especially a large upfront payment like that, to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I thought Rick was going to say something, so I'll
I
hand
had
it
a
back over to Rick.
question to you, Brett. You're talking about the communication, right? Not a front end app or something. So more like, how can we send jobs and make them end up to interact with existing packages that already exist on site of the orchestrators, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like
So
my proof of concept was I was putting a Python fast API, Python file, just a real simple 5-route API in front that could also, it already has you can build in all the Python stuff to load up the models and process. That was my proof of concept. I mean, ideally, it would be able just to be an API that registers with Go Livepeer, and then the front end just has to know how to talk with that back end kind of deal.
And
so each front end and each back end might speak a different language or different endpoints or formats of how the information is passed back and forth, but still use the REST API type HTTP API to pass that information back and forth.
Yeah, I think you make a really valid point. We should use already existing architectures and not put too much into Livepeer. Livepeer should function as this payment network, and that can orchestrate all these jobs. What do you think of Jon's solution with the containers then? I think that can handle it as well. If you can just send containers, or at least the container location on the repository, you have coded your stuff in there. And then it can just interact with it however you want.
Yeah,
Would
that'd
that be
be
a solution?
that'd be kind of similar to, what is it, Civet AI or something? Like, it's just like a place where people put stuff up, or maybe it's a limited set of people putting stuff up to try to build a trust factor initially that people could pull down and use, right? Or like orchestrators could pull down and say, hey, I got this. I can load it up if you want it.
Do you see problems with that?
I mean, there's going to be security problems, but I'm not that far in this thought process. I'm just trying to get it to work right now. If you're using,
oh, sorry, go ahead, bro.
Like Cloudflare has an AI worker, right? And is it kind of like I don't know if somebody's looked at that. It's like a limited set of models. Most of them are probably on Hugging Face for stability or whatever. And you just build that out slowly. Like, you pick something and just keep adding from there. And orchestrators can add whatever they want, really. If somebody wants it and they're willing to pull it down and run it, it's really up to the orchestrator at that point.
My concern is just the size of these models, and if if they're not predefined ahead of time, how long, like what does that do to the, I guess it also depends on the job type or how big the
Mm-hmm.
job is. Is it worth like sucking down a 9 gig model for someone to use?
Mm.
To give you a $1 ticket.
Yeah, so like I think it probably makes more sense to have at least a predefined set that are, at least locally stored that you can then load in, as needed. But to actually pull them down, might be a big ask.
Yeah, so
Maybe once they're pulled down, you cache them and keep them on your machine. But
Mhm.
and then
Yeah,
again,
so
it's security
Jonan already, I was
consideration.
discussing it with Jonan as well, and I think you have a valid point, Papa Bear there. Yeah, the first plan was, of course, they want to provide like this famous or at least often used containers with, for example, stable diffusion and build from there. And the custom containers will be after that. And the idea was there that you do some preloading and you remove them again after you haven't used them for some time. And I think with Docker, it will cache automatically all the components that are interlapping between your Docker containers. So it will be mostly the custom code and the trained network, but that can be big as well. So
Yeah, I think it's a big risk to put the models in the container if there's going to be a plethora of models and model variants, different sizes of the models, etc. Because
Mm-hmm.
eat up huge amount of disk space. If, let's say, you have one container that is for all types of image classification, where you're filled with all these variants of efficient net, and that's just one container, and then you have another container for all variants of upscaling. Before you know it, you've just chewed up 500 gigs of disk space. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, but you want to put the storage concerns in the hands of the node operators. So again, I think going back to Papa Bear, even if you're going to use Docker containers, the models still need to be external to those containers. You need to preload them on the host and then allow those models to be mounted in the containers as you need them to prevent all this storage sprawl. It's going to just balloon out of control, and then the barrier to entry will be disastrous. So
Mhm.
I think I'm echoing the same kind of sentiment here.
But I think the wrinkle in that, from my perspective, is I don't think we're going to end up all orchestrators running the same capabilities. I think we're all going to, you'll pick what you run, or you might switch what you run over time. But like right now, we all run the same transcoding capabilities, right? More or less. And I think in the end, not all of us are going to have every model saved.
Yeah, but if
Correct.
you look at the 80-20 rule, you're going to find that, there'll be 20% of the models generating 80% of the revenue. And I think folks are going to want to get in where the revenue's at.
Yeah. Well, then, Mike, we can make a hot load front end, right?
Hey,
pay $5. I'll download this
premium,
run it for you.
Hmm.
Somebody's gonna be standing in front of a server, hot swapping hard drives. Just, I need this one.
I mean, these are all production problems, though. It's like
Yeah.
get some usage first, and then worry about how disk space might get consumed. I mean, I don't think it's terrible to drop in a model, right? I mean, pick one. There's no reason to have all the variants of the model, different levels of quantization, different fine-tuned versions, and all the rest. Just pick one and see if you get adoption, and then start tweaking from there. You can always do other things too, where we ship a container that has a standard model in it that the community's agreed on
Yeah.
with the certain fine-tuned variant, and then have a setting that lets you override the location of that, and then you can volume mount a different model from another location that overrides whatever the default container has. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that this can go. But, back to usage, probably not worth over-engineering a problem that doesn't yet exist. But certainly, I guess just bring up the stuff as warning flags to think about before jumping in and say, hey, that COG solution that Yandon's talking about is ideal because it's super easy to develop with. Yeah, but it may not provide you the kind the flexibility of talking about it won't necessarily scale. So it's probably good for a proof of concept, but don't go all in writing all kinds of crazy code to integrate it deeply and make it the preferred solution without having some real customer usage of the solution. Customers in this sense being this community of O's, right?
Yeah. And like the concept of broadcaster, like the broadcaster now is, to me, it's kind of a heavy node. You have to spin it up, put the deposit down, somehow figure out how, if you're not transcoding your own stuff only, not broadcasting your own stuff, you have to figure out payment and everything. I'd like to see, and one of the things I'm toying with is just a lighter weight way of interacting with the network. This kind of goes back to, I think John talked about this, like the JavaScript or browser-based broadcaster. It just has to be able to, it needs to be able to just send what you want to do, send the data, send the payment, and then move on in the sense of the AI type work. Instead of the live transcoding, it's a much longer lived connection and integration together, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And that latter category of work is where a more robust integration is going to be necessary, because
Yeah.
moving the images for each frame between the CPU and the GPU, you don't want to do that many times over. It's expensive as hell. You know, it's much more efficient to keep the image loaded in the GPU and use it several times over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the subtle things like that are really where you start dealing with performance profiling and figuring out scale.
Well, the one thing I just wanted to say as it relates to, the DAO that they're going to be putting a proposal together is, they're asking for dollars for some resources to build some of these things out. I know Yonden's off doing his thing. A couple other team members are doing their thing. I think for us to be successful as the orchestrators in this group is we need to have a line of communication into what they're building and what their problems they're solving, because the worst scenario would be if Brad's all solving the same problem that I'm solving, that Yonden's solving, everyone's solving the same problems. But if we have some clear communication with the DAO and wherever the work and problem domain is being, addressed, I think we could get a better outcome and a more quicker outcome if we all align together somehow. And that's probably a bigger issue than the technology itself, but just something I wanted to throw out there.
Well, maybe you guys need to join this special purpose entity. Is it open for applications?
I don't know if it was. I thought it was kind of they're a set of people that are known builders, and they were going to do it.
Right.
With,
right.
With Livepeer Inc., of course. But I didn't think it was like the innovator style where it's much more open building ecosystem.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're asking for funds that come from our pockets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This DAO, this treasury is filled with orchestrator dollars. You know what I mean? Like, yes, that's fine. You can do your own thing, but you still need to provide insight as to what you're doing and what milestones and all the different deliverables that are going to come out, because ultimately we're paying for them, right? Like, so we'd like to see the source code. We'd like to, participate in maybe some of the spitballing sessions they have with architectures. Maybe they make it a point to do some of that in the public so that we can influence the outcome or even participate.
Yeah, I think an office hours type deal, not significantly different than the Catalyst Hackers Group. To just talk about it, show us track what's going on, see what's going on, all that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think that's a really good idea too. Both to make sure that there's a good line of communication and to have the and have a something like an office hours type set time where orchestrators can be in the loop of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I struggled a bit when I read the proposal and the discussion last week, because part of me thinks about all the perils, because I mean, I've been doing this kind of work now for some time, so I've seen this in production, implemented in production, not on a blockchain, on a decentralized web, but in traditional B2B Web 2 stuff. And those pitfalls make me want to say, oh, what about this? What about that? At the same time, though, we want to iterate here and get some something out that can validate that this is a decent idea, and that might mean having to sacrifice quality of a solution. That means, hey, whatever's built here out of the SPE may not be the long-term solution that is ideal for the network. So I don't, I don't know. I guess I'm just talking out loud, expressing, that need to have that balance of not slowing down the dev team that would want to go and do this work
Right.
with, hopes for where this might actually be in the future and what all the hardcore requirements should be.
Well, I think if they're going to submit an SPE and they're looking for funding, it's on us to say, hey, we would expect this level of communication to occur as part of this, right? Like they talk about milestones and deliverables, but I think there should also be touch points along the way to say, at this phase, we're going to be building out an architecture, or we have some sort of high level architecture diagram they're going to be building towards. That, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a few working groups with the community to just say, hey, we're getting your funding, and here you can participate in these things. And I don't know, maybe somehow we influence their SPE when they file it, so that we can say in advance, guys, make sure you bake this in. Because again,
Yeah.
I won't vote for something if the source is not open source, and if it's not going to be, collaborative. If it's all closed source and we have to wait till they're done to see it, I don't like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to jump in, there is a section in the proposal that they have a transparency and commitments section, which I would encourage everyone to read, or maybe reread again if you've already read it. But it says they are committed to transparently sharing their plan, building in the public with the community, showcasing the outcomes. I don't read the whole thing out loud now, but there is a section that addresses that. And there was one little part here too. It says the community will have transparency into each milestone's goals and outcomes, but not internal transparency into allocation of funds. So, and I understand that, they don't want to have to get community votes and stuff on like that where they spend their money. But it does sound like there is a plan to be transparent about what they're working on
Well, the
and
thing
get
is
feedback.
about that, though, the milestones they iterate in the document, right? And there's only really one milestone there, and it's, hey, develop this, give us $250,000, and this is very unclear. So I think the milestones could be a bit more
Defined.
specified and defined, especially for the upfront part of, well, this is the design, and again, I'm a little leery of putting the foot down on that in the proverbial sense, because I hate to discourage activity and development. So I mean, that's what I was pointing out before. I'm a little conflicted, but yeah, I mean, the way it's drafted right now, there is no specificity around any engineering milestones or feature milestones. And it's almost like, hey, here are some very generalized milestones that don't really speak to what's delivered. So it could go from 0 to 100% done in one maneuver and unlock, the funding and payment. So ideally, there's something a little bit more defined, at least from an architectural point of view or feature functionality point of view, that in the bulleted list.
I'd be more comfortable with a single payment maneuver if I saw, with 3 months of work, and that I was participating every week and I could see things that are happening, and I know that it's actually going down a path I can support. But if we have to wait and see and hope that at the end what we get is what we paid 200, $250,000, like you said, and what do we get? A proof of concept that can't run in production. That's not good.
No,
Do you
I
guys
think
think it
it-
would be beneficial to for one of us or all of us or a group of us to post into the forum post that we'd like to request a chat or phone call or whatever you call it to discuss some of
Yeah,
these issues we're having?
I'm in support of that. I'm happy to put my voice on that.
Because that sounds like a good idea to me. I mean, I'd like to hear some their
Yeah.
thoughts on these questions that are coming up, and sometimes just being able to like vocally express them is gets through clearer than text, at least.
I could invite them
actions.
to a water cooler chat where we could schedule time and see how many of those team members we can get on at once, and then
That's an option too. Yeah.
Good idea.
maybe next water cooler chat I can reach out to Con, who posted the thing, and then I can say
Yeah, that's actually good. That seems like a good idea to me.
see
I
if
mean,
CJ and Yondon and Doug and Eli would come, Sarah, see if they would be interested in trying to do a scheduled 1 hour, pre-proposal review or pre-proposal introduction to the community,
I think that will be great because I think you all share the same opinion. I have a hard time at really understanding what the SPA is about. To me now, it looks that they are the milestone is only develop a front app, and I think that's not the hard part of this whole operation.
Yeah, that's the closed source part too.
Yeah, I've been interested in, what problem we'll be solving with AI. I mean, there's obviously talked about lots of different models you can run and problems that AI can solve, and some of them are more resource intensive than others. But I've been thinking about how it ties in with live video or video in general. Would there be any product features that would be a good fit? Like one of the things I thought about, mentioned earlier, was transcribing the audio of a video into captions. And it goes into the playlist for the video, which there's actually a spec for. So something like that might be a good proof of concept that doesn't have a lot of resource usage and also fits into sort of our current product without having too much overhead.
Yeah, I would be way happier with something that you say than a front app because I think it's way more valuable to just keep it simple and as a proof of concept. And they request a lot of money for this. So.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, this group here does a lot of work validating the solution as new releases come out, and there may be even room to add some more to the SPE and carve it out and say, hey, we need a group of testers to validate the milestones independently from the group that's building it, and fund that as well to incentivize people to test it and get engaged.
I will
Yeah.
say though, just as a remark, that I think the people that like having Doug and Eli as advisors, and also Eli being the catalyst engineer, like there is good guidance that they have a track record, whereas if this is just a new group of people that popped up out of nowhere, you could say, well, we don't know who you are. You're applying for funds. You want upfront payment. We could definitely create a lot more scrutiny around, what are the milestones, what are the deliverables. But I will say though that the team members in this do have a track record within Livepeer already, and so yes, it's good to have the details, but I think track records also speak for themselves. So I think the advisory and the credibility of the team is quite high. So we're
Definitely.
just to keep that into account.
I think the general takeaway from what I'm hearing here, though, is I think everyone seems to be in agreement that we'd like to have a call with them before this gets proposed to address some issues, so that we can better understand what they're working on and whether or not we want to vote to approve this.
Yeah.
Provide some clarity and explain milestones.
Yep.
Is that kind of? I'll reach out to them, but I guess the topic is around
Yeah.
pre-proposal introduction, and the community, and to provide explaining milestones and providing clarity around it, the mission.
Yeah, and I mean, they did a little bit of that, right, last week with the pre-proposal, that discussion during the governance call. So, they might be confused if we call it the pre
Yeah, I think it's more
Oh,
in going into depth with the SPE because I asked questions about it also in the call we had with the treasury call, and then Quan said to me that he's planning to make everything open source that he made, so that's already a good point. But I want to have clarity at what exactly they are proposing making.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll reach out to them and see if we can get them in for the next water cooler.
Thanks.
That would be a great, great opportunity.
Good idea.
yeah, thanks.
Cool. Okay. Well, we've talked about AI a lot, so that's exciting. What we'll do is we'll move on to a couple other topics. Also, in the comments, Marley Mon mentioned, I'm curious if the spike will be a superset of the Go Livepeer functionality. I think that's from an earlier conversation. Agree that big benefit water cooler chat would be valuable, along with the hardware, GPU requirements, and the scope of opportunity this work would capture. Oh, that's a good point. Kind of scope of the work trying to capture. Good point. Cool. Yes, and AI is like super hot topic, so like that's cool and all. It's super trendy. I might make a video just for the general people, just explaining kind of what this would look like or what cool advancements in Livepeer, so people can get a quick update, 2-minute update on what's going on. Because yeah, this is pretty big. All right, let's move on to some more topics. Let's go on to Papa Bear. You had a topic around additional requirements to be an active O.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't have a. I mean, there was. I was looking at. We have a new orchestrator that joined last month. They end in A55, and looking at the end of the month for December, that they had received about 10% of all the fees on the network. And looking now, currently they're at about I think it's about 19% for January. And I was like, that's interesting because they only have 1,500 Ks. Sorry, so they have 1,500 LPT staked to them. And then looking further, I see that they are sending all the work to themselves, and that they are not a publicly addressable orchestrator. So it kind of just raised a couple just thoughts of, is that, I mean, I don't think that, I'm not accusing them of breaking any rules because I don't see any rules they're breaking. I just don't know, is this anything that we should be concerned about or curious about? Like, what is, are there any issues that, I guess is worth looking into, like, the fact that they are not publicly addressable seems like there may be potentially some kind of an issue with that. Or I'm just trying to figure out, what is their what's their intention exactly. So I did look into it a little further, trying to figure out, is this an orchestrator that we're familiar with? Is it someone who's running like a test on the network? Is it something that maybe Livepeer, are they running some internal testing? And I did see that it looked like the initial funds were like tumbled through Tornado Cash, which that that in itself doesn't raise concerns, but that along with not knowing what their intentions are makes me wonder: are there possibly some malintent coming this way from that orchestrator? Just looking at it as a whole. And then I was trying to think, like, what could they, what could the, purpose be to do this? And if they are, setting themselves lots of fees on the network to make their orchestrator look better and plan to, um, change their fee cuts and things like that, is there, does that make them more attractive to, get delegation? If, it shows that they, get a lot of work. Currently, I don't think they have any external delegation, so they're basically just recycling the funds over and over again. And again, not breaking any rules here, from what I can see. But Then the other issues are, it does the, I mean, if this, and again, no way am I saying this is Livepeer doing this, but if it were someone who, or actually maybe forgetting that there's Livepeer, if this is someone who wanted to try to manipulate the token price, does this now show a major increase in network usage, which is not actually true network usage, and could that be used in any way to manipulate the token price? And is that something we should be concerned about as a community? You know, maybe to either raise it up and then maybe crash it down, or just, you know, a lot of different thoughts about, you know, what could be going on here, and is it anything that we should be concerned about? Are there protocol changes we could make to discourage this type of behavior? And just kind of wanted to get some general thoughts out about what you guys thought about it, or if anyone's ever, or anyone's even noticed it, or
That's really
anyone.
interesting. I know, like before, there was concerns about, someone like, I don't know, Binance running an orchestrator that wasn't publicly addressable, right? They were just calling reward, and that issue did come up a couple times as a question. So I kind of can see the reason for concern there. And then it's kind of odd. It's like you should just be able to run an orchestrator off chain, if your purpose is not to
Well, that was my
participate
thought
in the
too.
network.
That's my thought too. So it was just, yeah, you know, yeah, just try. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't have any, you know, any thoughts to, like, you know, I mean, I guess it's more of a concern, and is it something that we should be concerned about? I'm not, you know, accusing them of doing anything wrong, but if it's, you know, if it could potentially be manipulating token price, that's a concern. So I guess that's probably my biggest concern, is if, you know, if there's some malicious intent here.
There's no way to impose anything, right? We can kind of do whatever they want. We have no way of kicking them
Right.
out other than just raising the minimum Livepeer token. I think that's what you're asking though, like how can
I mean,
we?
it's just real. It's more of just, I guess it's kind of just like, I don't know. I guess any thoughts about what could possibly, you know, the intention be?
Initially, I was thinking they were. I haven't looked at all of how they're set up or how they can be connected to. But initially, my thought was they're going to run everything to their own orchestrator, like their broadcast, and they're going to run it to themselves until they, have too many streams on that they can handle, and then it fails over to the network. But what you just said made me think that that's not what they're doing. So I haven't really thought too much about what negative things they could be doing.
It's interesting because, like, we've run into similar issues with, like, people spinning up 10 O's on the network, and what are the ramifications for that, and is this what we want, and to what degree can we change that? And I think Doug has come back to a few times around, like, Livepeer is based around economic incentives, and so blockchains are kind of open, and so to what degree do we want to control these things, or what degree are we just worried about the incentives from an economic standpoint? So I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting. Does anyone else have any comments on that?
I mean, I guess the other thing that I guess is worth mentioning or talking about is, since I mean, the way that network traffic is currently seems to be measured is, but based on the fees that are, go through the network. Is that something that we want to consider, maybe putting something like a streamer integration into the protocol that shows, or actually, I don't even know if this would help, but it shows the network usage in another way that isn't based on the fees that are sent. But I guess there's still, there is actually transcoding happening. Although I guess it still would be off chain. So it would still go as network usage. I'm just concerned about if there's manipulation going on, showing work that's being done on the network that's not. I mean, like, what if we were all to just start self-dealing to ourselves, and it made it look like there was 100% increase in network usage, in a month? Is that something that 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 we should be concerned about?
Isn't that what Solana does to make it look more competitive to Ethereum?
Oh, I don't know. Do they?
Or every low fee blockchain just basically juices up their transactions to say they do more transactions than Ethereum.
Well, that's an area I don't know. I don't have any knowledge on, but be interesting if that's the case. And
but I think that's just like a problem within or a problem within crypto in general. Is just like there's this entire notion of like if you go to Glassnode, you can check all the addresses and transact. You can see all the blockchain analytics on the two biggest chains, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's like, okay, here's like 1 million addresses, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? It's an active address, but what does it mean, right? Because one entity can spin up 1 million, and it doesn't. What is it? So, and then there's this 500 million transactions, but they're just really just it's microtransactions between the wallets that again the same entity owns. And so I guess the question is like, how much do we want the blockchain world versus how much do we want the permission, like how much permissionless do we want, and then how do we just deal in that new world, right? Because with freedom comes freedom. Like it's an open source, open built network, right? And so there's just always trade-offs is what I'm saying.
I agree. I think the only thing here is to monitor them and just look if there are any security breaches they could cause. I don't see any breaches right now, right?
Yeah. Anyone else have an opinion or comment on that? Cool. Great. Papa Bear, your next topic was the 40 series card. The super card is coming out.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little
yes.
bit about that.
No, I just know that they were officially unveiled today with the actual specs. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of speculation, but the official release and or announcement and pricing. So it looks like the 4080 Super looks pretty interesting. It looks like it's going to be $200 less than the current 4080. Have 16 gigs of RAM versus 12 gigs, so you get an increase of RAM. I think it's slightly more CUDA cores on the card, so um, it could be an interesting card. Just seeing that got more RAM, more processing, and $200 less than the current 4080. So that one just kind of stuck out to me as potentially an interesting card. Not knowing what the requirements will be for AI stuff, but and then just going down the line, it seemed like just in general. We're getting more card for our money, which is something we haven't seen in a long time, especially from NVIDIA. So just thought it was worth bringing up, and don't really have any comments on it other than just to kind of be aware they'll all be released sometime, during this month, staggered, but through the end of the month, they'll should be hitting the market. So if you're interested in a new card for testing AI stuff, worth keeping an eye out and see when they hit your local retailer.
Isn't the 50 series card slated to go live at some point?
I mean, at some point for sure. I mean, nothing officially, announced on that. They're just, talking about the supers now. So I think a lot of it has to do with what AMD released, and I didn't actually look to see what they were doing today, but the rumors were that they weren't really trying to compete at the high end. It was more trying to you know, have a lower tier offerings and be price competitive. So I think that was part of the reason that these supers came out, was to kind of thwart AMD's move and you know, give NVIDIA cards in the you know, just boost the power on the cards, and actually it looks like they dropped the price basically for more compute. So probably made it a little tough for AMD with whatever they did announce. But since AMD cards haven't really been too much important for Livepeer, I don't keep tabs on them like I do with the NVIDIA stuff. So so my point with that was that I don't think NVIDIA has a lot of incentive to push the 50 to come out too soon, because they've still got the, you know, the lead right now. So I've seen, you know, and rumors that, you know, AMD, or that sorry, NVIDIA is ready to, they can release the 50 now. I mean, they have, you know, everything to do it, but they don't have any from a marketing and point of view, it doesn't make sense for them to kill the cards they have now, since there's nothing to compete with them. So I think, you know, at earliest we'll see them, it would be next year, would be my guess. And again, just total guess based on rumors, but I don't think we'll be seeing them like coming out anytime, you know, on the near future, or near, you know. So, but yeah, yes, will there be a 50? Absolutely. I don't know, you know, what it will be. That it's still very early. You know, the rumors are, you know, all over the place on that one.
Right on, right on. Cool. All right. I see that John had left. He was our last topic. His was around price per pixel, adjusting workloads, and then also video transcribing. So taking voice and transcribing it through video. So he's not here to explain that a little bit. But yeah, does it as a last topic, does anyone want to talk about the price per pixel upgrade and what they're seeing? Or I should not say upgrade, but just change.
You're saying just like what's currently in place, and then I guess tomorrow there's going to be a new change also. Is that what I believe Hunter posted something about that last week?
Oh, is that right?
They were going to they were going to weight it more towards price than it currently is. Take the stake.
Did they
out
already
of it a
do
little
that, or I thought they already did that?
They did, but it sounds like the latest decision was that they want to move it more towards price, and even lower the maximum prices that are acceptable for both VOD and for live work from Livepeer.
Right.
So so that it was slated for tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. I guess depending on where you live too. But yeah. With where it currently sits, I don't really have any comments, and where it's going to go. You know, with this new change, it's. I guess time will tell. We'll have to see how it works out.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been seeing some more. The work seems really choppy lately, and not sure if that's good or bad. I've seen a slight uptick in work, which is nice, but not. It's just it seems really choppy. I don't know if that's VOD work or just across the board. People are just choppiness in the network.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because, you know, we don't know what the demand actually is. So you know, it's hard to really tell if there's you know, changes in the distribution, or if it's just, you know, if work has, you know, increased or decreased on the network. So I find it very difficult to really gauge, you know, how's my pricing and stuff like that. Kind of given up on really even trying to really optimize at this point, because it's I just don't feel like there's enough data out there to make meaningful decisions on that at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, well, we've gone through all the topics. Any last comments before we sign off? Right on. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's Water Cooler Chat, where we work to make the world's open video infrastructure, which is Livepeer. I will contact the people for next week, see if we can get them in for a Q&A session. Otherwise, Thanks for joining, and we will see you all next week. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.